Number 1. Old Laughing Man. When I was growing up, I lived in rural West Virginia. This was decades ago, too. This happened back in the 1950s, to be exact. My family lived in a very poor little shack. You might have called it that. All of us kids slept in the same room, and our parents had their own room. We had one run-down pickup truck that my dad used to drive to work. And yeah, I know it sounds cliche since we lived in West Virginia, but my daddy was a coal miner. There was a bus system to get to school, but we lived out in a holler, and the bus didn't go up that road. And so us kids would have to get up really early, walk down the dirt road while it was still dark outside, get down to the asphalt road, and then wait for the bus to arrive. It was always still dark when the bus arrived. I always remember watching the sun come up while we rode the bus to school. Now, although our house was pretty bad and old, it wasn't anything close to the one house that sat between us and the asphalt road. It was a tiny little shack that looked like it had been put up with thin boards and held together by nothing but nails. And it was a miracle that the old thing was even able to stand up. And still, it had a small porch in the front, and on that small porch was an old rocking chair. And the man who lived in that home was someone that us kids just referred to as Old Man Thompson. We didn't really interact with him in any way. My mama always told us just do our best to stay away from him. And she told us that he wasn't right in the head, and don't talk to him or anything. Well, before this story takes place, the amount of times I saw the man made it impossible for me to not stay away from him. He was never out of his home in the morning when we were walking to the school bus. Once in a while, when we were walking home after school, we might have seen him sitting in his rocking chair. But even then, he would simply nod to us to acknowledge us as we walked by. During winter of that year, a few things came together and made for a very scary situation. First being that my two siblings both got the flu at the same time. That meant they had to stay home from school, so I had to walk to the bus stop on my own in the dark. That was rather frightening. On the second morning that I was walking to the bus stop in the dark, I noticed something as I was passing the old man's shack. There was a little bit of a red light. I stood still for a moment, trying to figure out what it was. After a minute it moved and was flicked, and I finally realized that I was looking directly at the old man. He had never been out in the morning, and he was sitting on the porch, smoking a cigarette. I jumped when I noticed the old man. He must have noticed that his presence startled me, because he began laughing at that point. And I cannot explain it really. I had never heard that man laugh before, and the laugh was creepier than anything I could ever imagine. I turned and hurried down the street, eager to get to the bus stop. For the next few days, I walked by that man's house on the way to the bus stop, and each time I would notice him on the porch, smoking a cigarette. And every time that I noticed him, he would laugh at me, much like he had laughed at me the first time. Each time, I was not able to really define the laugh. It was just weird. Well, and then on Friday, I went out the door to go to school. I was carrying my lunch pail and had my backpack with my books in it. As I was walking along, I noticed a light up ahead of me. It didn't take me too long to realize that what I was seeing was a fire, and soon I realized that the old man's shack was on fire. I didn't know what to do. This wasn't something I was used to. I ran up to the burning shack, wondering how the fire started and what was going on. But as I got closer, I noticed something that I have never forgotten, even after all these years. Sitting on the porch, as usual, the old man was sitting there, burning, and most likely dead. It was like he just sat there, as he slowly burned to death. It was so grisly I could not ever get that picture out of my head. It was gruesome to see human flesh burning, and I hope you never see it. I ran back to my house. My mom had to call the fire department, and I missed the bus to school that day. Strangely enough, I was told what likely happened. The man didn't burn to death. He had died before the fire started. He likely had a heart attack, dropped his cigarette, and that began the fire that created the nastiest thing I had ever seen. The fire was put out and the body was taken away, but the remains of the shack were never removed. I walked by them twice every day, on the way to school and the way back, and each time I remembered watching that old man burning. Being a YouTube narrator, I tend to get a lot of stories submitted to me. Occasionally, I will miss a story and miss an email or a message and not respond to the person who sent me the story. When I do this, I never do it deliberately. So these following stories are stories that were submitted to me on Facebook, and I never received them until now. So your stories will be read. Enjoy. Number 2. My story may not be as exciting as the stories when people get possessed, or the spirit does something to prove it's real, but it is 100% true. When I was younger, my mother told me about her own Ouija experience, and I became extremely fascinated by the board, despite the fact that she insisted it wasn't something to play around with. Every time I saw one at the store, I would always ask for it, but my mom always said no. When I was a teenager, I found out that you could make your own, so I did. I made my own Ouija board completely out of cardboard, but I didn't play it right away because I was really nervous, since they always say not to play alone. None of my friends were brave enough to play it with me. Eventually my excitement and curiosity got the better of me. I took out the board and began to play by myself. After all, it's just a game, right? And I asked the basic questions. Is anybody there? Are there any spirits nearby? Are there any spirits that would like to speak? Initially, I didn't get any response, but I kept trying. After a few more times, just when I was about to give up, the planchette slowly began to move towards yes. I really hadn't expected it to work. So at this point, I freaked out and did something you are never supposed to do. I took my hand off the planchette, completely without saying goodbye. Once I had time to breathe and calm down a bit, I realized what I had done and tried to play again so I could say goodbye. I put the planchette back on the board and began asking if anyone was there again, but this time I got no responses at all. I tried for a little while longer before I gave up and put the board aside. I told myself that I must have been the one moving it and went about my day. I never picked up the board again, but after my initial experience, strange things started to happen around the apartment my mother and I shared. Things would disappear from where they'd been placed. Mirrors and pictures would fall off the walls for no reason. We would hear sounds like things falling, doors opening and closing, our names being called. My mother told me that one night, when I wasn't home, she woke up from a dreamless sleep to the feeling of someone standing right next to her side of the bed and looking down on her. She said she didn't see whatever it was, but it gave her a horrible feeling of evil. She turned on her favorite Christian station and prayed to God until the presence finally went away and she could go back to sleep. She also told me that, on more than one occasion, she would wake up to someone calling out, "Mom!" from my room. Sometimes, when I wasn't there, she was always too frightened to go see what it was. I never had anything that severe happen to me, but then my mom was always more sensitive to the spirit world, possibly as a result of living in many haunted houses in her life. We both saw shadows at night when we were in the bathroom, though, as there was a clear view of the entrances to our bedrooms from the toilet. I'd see them leaving and entering my room mostly, sometimes hers. I did wake up early one morning, though, to my stereo volume going up by itself, until it was so loud my ears were hurting. I thought I must have laid on the remote, but it was sitting on my nightstand next to my bed. I tried to turn the volume back down and even turned the stereo off, but it didn't respond to the remote. So I just got up and turned it off manually. It never happened again. I don't know if all the strange things that happened in that apartment were actually a result of me playing with the board, or if it was all just one big coincidence. But I know they did happen. On occasion, I still have dreams about that old apartment, and they are mostly bad ones that often include demons and evil spirits. My Christian co-worker says that it's possible something is trying to bring me back there or follow me to where I am now. I haven't spoken to the new tenants, but I hope they're all safe and well. I have played Ouija 2 times with friends since, both at different people's houses, and never had anything weird happen, even though we supposedly got a spirit once. I think one friend was just moving the planchette. It's been several years since the last time I played, and I'm not looking to play again, just in case the apartment haunting was caused by the board. My curiosity was satisfied, and I have a family of my own to think about now. My mother passed away at only 58, but I have a son who seems to have some ghostly friends of his own, and I don't want to risk him getting hurt. Number 3. John the Janitor. This was a paranormal experience that happened to me. I was going to a new middle school. I won't say the name or location. John was the janitor who I always used to talk to. I was the new kid, and I didn't have any friends. I got bullied a lot, and I always used to skip class just to get away from my tormentors. And I hid out from anybody. John the janitor didn't mind. He told me he used to get bullied when he was in school, and it will get better soon. I'll graduate and never come back to the school. I believed him after that. I didn't see him for a while, as 4 weeks had gone by since I'd seen John. And then it happened. I was pushed inside the bathroom as I was walking to class. 2 boys were keeping watch outside the bathroom, and 3 of them were beating me up. I was punched in the stomach and slapped, spat on. I couldn't take it anymore. I ran and I hid under the hallway stairs. And that's when I saw him. John was back. He was scraping the floor with a tennis ball. I guess to get the scuff marks out of the floor. He saw me crying, and he said, "Hey, what's up?" I told him I can't take it anymore. I'm running away. He told me things seem hard or rough sometimes, but just hang in there. Things will get better. Trust me as always. I believed him. The next day after lunch I threw up. I told the nurse and she told me it was food poisoning. She called my mom and she came to the school to pick me up. As she was signing me out of the office, she noticed an obituary, and she said to the principal, "I'm sorry for your loss." I looked at the obituary, and it read John. I asked, "When did he die?" The principal told me he died 4 weeks ago. But I told myself it's impossible. I spoke to him yesterday. Later that night I kept thinking about it. It was his spirit, telling me it will get better. I don't know, John. I hope you rest in peace. Number 4. I am a 23-year-old female, and I wanted to write this as a warning to others who like to walk in the woods. My son and I like to explore a lot. This happened on May 5th, near Bancroft, Ontario, Canada. I took him to an old foundation, only a 5-minute walk down a closed old road, so we could metal detect. Only about 10 minutes had passed as we were digging around having fun. So this road is the old fire route. Only ATVs really drive down it. I got weirded out, like bad gut feeling, as a black pickup truck with a red stripe down the side sped down the dirt to my right. I saw it was a man. He turned his head and clearly saw me, then skidded for a bit. He continued to speed down the road. I breathed as I heard the engine fade. 5 more minutes passed, and I could hear the truck speeding back towards my son and me. I remembered all the scary stories I'd heard, my heart pounding. I grabbed my son and hid behind some thick green trees. The truck rumbled up and stopped. I could see through branches that he was looking for where we were. As he turned and started to open his door, I had my boy tight in my arms and ran to this other side trail, which would give me one last chance to be undetected. Just as he saw me, so did my husband. I was so lucky that I told him where I was and that he had to go to town and decided to pick us up. The man freaked out, slammed his door and sped off, back out to the main road. I'm thankful we never had to meet that creep. Make sure someone knows where you're going. It may just save your life. Number 5. Weather does certainly get weird fast. When our boys were little, we took them to a park on a sunny day. The weather was beautiful. There was a long path to get to the playground equipment. We were talking about how glorious the day was, and looked up to see heavy, dark, ominous clouds quickly rolling in. Just as I was about to say that we should go, hail fell from the sky, pummeling us. People were running, our kids were crying. We decided we may be safer waiting it out under some of the playground equipment. So we huddled underneath. My husband and I put the kids in the middle of us to shield them. The balls of ice felt like what I assumed darts hitting a dartboard would feel like, just as it was feeling unbearable and having to take gasps of air because it was incredibly cold. Those hail balls hitting our backs like bullets. The storm let up. Almost immediately. That was a frightful situation that I wouldn't mind never having to go through again. Hey all, Killer Orange Cat here. I want to say thank you to all the people who submitted stories, and offer an apology for not responding to them. Some of these stories were submitted to me in 2019. One of the things I treasure about my channel is my interaction with my subscribers. I don't know if the people who submitted these stories are still watching my videos or not. I hope that they are. And I hope that they enjoyed my narrations of their stories. Thank you. If you like this video, please let me know by hitting the like button. If you're not already subscribed to Killer Orange Cat, please feel free to click the subscribe button and bell below. or click the icon of Ichigo the cat that will appear at the end of this closing. Leave me a comment, and share this video with someone you think might enjoy it. If you have an original story you'd like narrated on Killer Orange Cat, please email it to the address included in the description. But most importantly, don't forget to make sure to check in your closet and check under your bed, because you never know where a Killer Orange Cat might be hiding. Good night.